gun violence has been surging. It's the mass shooter, active shooter thing is not going away anytime soon. And something's needed. Someone needs to do something.
Welcome to UpTech Report. This is our Apply Tech series. UpTech Report is sponsored by TerraLeap. Learn how to leverage the power of video at terraleap.io. Today, I'm excited to be joined by my guest, Mike Lahiff, who's based in the Philadelphia area. He's the CEO at ZeroEyes. Welcome, Mike. Good to have you on.
Thanks, Alexander. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Now, what we're going to talk about in today is start with what I understand the product is, and then to hear your journey as a founder of this company, what that's been like, and then we'll end again on the technology itself and where you see it going in the future. From what I understand, ZeroEyes, if pulling from your website, is an AI-based weapons detection solution platform, or your marketing slogan here, stop threats at first sight, not first shot. So basically, you've trained using your AI, you've trained it to detect weapons. Then they're looking through security cameras. So if a gun is detected, it's pushed to a person, someone sees a gun. If it's a real threat, they push to 911 within 3 to 5 seconds. And this is like schools and campuses. And is that the solution? Do I understand correctly?
Yep, that's it.
All right.
You summed it up really well.
It's a fascinating space right now because it's so much in the news. And people are like, all right, security's guns going off, but your angle of this is trying to, and I like your slogan, to be able to detect it before anyone shoots it. And no one can look at all these security cameras all the time ever. Good use for technology. Take me back though. Where did this all begin? You didn't actually start as a tech guy, right?
No, I did not. I mean, how far back do you want me to go?
Let's go all the way back. I mean, like what's your background, man?
Okay, so I was in college when 9/11 happened. I dropped out about a year later and enlisted in the Navy with the goal to become a SEAL. That's where I met our other co-founders, or some of them. And then I did that until 2013, finished my undergrad while I was in the military. I left active duty for really spend more time with my family. I didn't see my kids much. I was constantly deployed. And then applied to B school. I was fortunate enough to get into Wharton, and I'm from the Philly area. So I moved back to Philadelphia. And when I was at Wharton, I was like, okay, I just left my dream job. What am I going to do now? And I dabbled in a little bit of everything. I started off tech startups. That's where I met our current CTO, Tim Solzer. He was actually my first boss when I got out of the Navy. And then went into private equity. Then I went corporate over at Comcast, director of digital program management. And I had a real estate side hustle, investing in multifamily real estate investments. And then in 2018, after the Parkland school shooting, my daughter's school started doing a lot of, they call them lockdown drills, but it's just a nice term for an active shooter drill. She was came home really upset about it. Like, hey, Dad, are they going to shoot our school like they're doing to these other schools? Because at the time, it seemed like every other month you turned on the news, there was another school shooting. And I was just like, this is crazy. So a few weeks went by. I was at her school for an indoor lacrosse practice because it was still kind of like winter transitioning into spring. And I was looking around, and there was a security camera literally like every 15 feet. And it's a big building. Security guard was walking by, and I was like, hey, he was watching the security cameras. And he was like, he just laughed, and he was like, no one's watching them. He's like, we only look at them after something happens, like a school fight, someone breaks into a locker, or crime, whatever, something bad happened. And I was like, how many do you have here? And he was like, I think around 250 cameras. And I was just like, wait a second, did like some quick math in my head. I'm like, and this is a middle school. And I knew some folks that were already doing computer vision around facial recognition technology. And I was like, oh, it would be compelling to put in a school. But then you have all these privacy concerns. And there's a lot of headwinds with that, with ACLU, and rightfully so. And I was like, wait, well, why don't we just use these cameras to detect guns? It's not detecting a person, it's detecting an object. Everyone wants to know when there's a gun open somewhere, especially in a place like a school. And then if we could send that information to first responders, so now they know what the shooter looks like, what type of weapon they're carrying, and where they're located at. Because I absolutely would have loved to have that information like almost real time while in the military. I thought that would have been it just will help reduce response times. It would just all around be a better work out better for first responders in these situations. And so we started ZeroEyes, and it started off in my basement, and here we are.
So this is 2018. You officially began. When was did your daughter come home from school and this idea? Was it 2018?
Yeah, it was in February, like a couple days after the Parkland school shooting.
And so you realize all these cameras, no one's looking at them. I know some people in AI. There's got to be solutions. So you have three other co-founders. Is that right?
No, there's five of us.
There's five of you. Okay, gotcha. So there's four other co-founders. And then in your basement, you start to just train the AI on detecting weapons?
Yeah. So first kind of we were kicking around a bunch of ideas with just like weapon detection was one of them. Like we don't even have to get into all that, but it was a lot of whiteboarding. And then guys sleeping in hammocks in my basement. And we're like, okay, we need money for this. Everyone quit their jobs. Everyone like put money.
Did everyone just like see the vision? They're like, all right, I'm going to leave everything and jump into this?
Yeah. It was, everyone quit. We all quit right at the same time. Or it was like within a month or two of each other. And we're like, literally sold everything that we had. And just like.
And you all have families or just you or?
Three out of the five of us, three of us have kids.
And you're like, all right, but they saw the vision, quit your job. Let's go to your basement. Let's train some AI.
Yeah. And then, so we're like, okay, first we need something that detects a gun. Right. And, so we started building a AI model. And then we were running web scraping tools and just pulling images off the internet. You could get images. You could like go and order data sets of whatever image you want. And so we trained a model with that, and we ran it over a YouTube video. It was a clip of the Matrix movie, actually, where like they walk into the elevator lobby room, and it was detecting guns. We're like, oh, this is sweet. And I was like, all right, next phase, let's hook up some security cameras to the back of the house and walk around there with guns. And a bunch of us came from the military and the SEAL teams, and we access to plenty of guns. And so we went out in my yard and we're walking around with my guns. And my backyard had kids' bikes in it. There was lacrosse sticks laying on the ground. There was basketball. It thought everything was a gun. I was like, okay, this is a problem. And then, we just kept A/B testing. We kept going back, and then very quickly we came to a conclusion, like our data is absolutely garbage. So we collected all of our own data. We still do to this day. We have a full dedicated AI team with an AI lab where we record ourselves in a variety of different environments and then meticulously curate that data to go into our training model. And we still do the A/B testing that we did that day 3 years later to constantly make tweaks and improve it. And there's been a lot of articles written in the last year about, everyone wants to go. The easy part's making a model, right? The hard part, which everyone overlooks, is the data that goes into it. And that's huge. So we have, we're very proud of our data sets.
I could imagine you definitely build a walled garden around that. The fact that you have your own people training and recording it, you're not just scraping it from the internet. But that's the real key of not having lots of false positives.
Correct.
But you still have a human in the loop in your end solution, which sounds like it's critical.
Yeah, I think in any AI component, you really need that human. Well, I shouldn't say any, but you need that for something like what we're trying to do. You need a human in the loop. You can't just rely on some algorithm through a machine to do that. And plus we really focus on partnering with our customers, and we want to be there for them and wow them, help them with their security concerns. And if they're getting annihilated by a bunch of false positives, false alarms, that'd be really annoying. Like imagine if you went and put in a fire alarm system at a school and it went off like all the time. They'd be like, dude, come on.
It's not. Yeah, we all get annoyed at smoke alarms that when it beeps because the battery's ready to be changed. It's like, just stop beeping, whatever, or it goes off because the oven's open or whatever. So it's definitely in a enterprise space or at this level, it has to work, has to be reliable. Right. You started 2018. What's kind of the timeline that you start rolling this out?
So we came together March 2018. We like formed it. May is like when everyone was like officially quit their jobs, sleeping in my basement. We were heads down there for the next 6 months just to get an MVP. So it was like a focus on the model, and then we were like, okay, great, we have a model. At least one that wasn't like completely embarrassing to go show people. It was like looking back on it now, I'm like, wow, that was bad. But then it was okay, we need to demo this to someone so we can get into a beta site. And we're like, wait, we have to ingest a camera feed. And so we had to start like thinking about ingesting camera feeds. And we're like, let's just get it right with one camera feed and we could focus on the scalability of that. So then it took a couple months. We did demos. We had someone Roger up and say, yeah, we'll let you guys test this out here. And then we'd be if you guys get it working and it works well, would be interested in buying it. And we're like, okay. And that took like a year. So we went to a school in New Jersey and they were phenomenal. They're still a customer to this day. Our first customer too. And we were heads down focused there. We were they were really great. And so we're like the local community, the local police, to let us go into the school and test and train on our system. And so we had two approaches to it. Well, actually it was like three. One was like focus on the AI model and the performance and different lighting conditions, different heights of cameras, different types of, they had a plethora of different cameras at the school. And we just meticulously collected all the data. So from us testing ourselves, so we could go back and tweak the AI model. Then it was also, all right, how do we take all these camera feeds and pump it into one system and have the AI model run over it? And we're like, okay, let's start checking those boxes. But then it was like, okay, it's alerted. Who's that alert going to and what's that process look like? How are they looking at it? How do they want to receive it? Because we thought it was going to be one way and it ended up being a totally, completely different way.
What was that? What did you initially see it as working as?
We thought like cops were going to be running around with our app and stuff like that. And it doesn't work that way. And then we started embedding ourselves at the 911 center to see how they would handle it if they received. And we just spent a lot of time with the customer to understand like, okay, you got this information. What are you going to do? How are you going to look at it? How are you going to receive it? And so we did all that. And then when we showed it to them, we did some demos and like everyone was like, oh, this is great. Awesome. And then like we got some PR around it, which was great. Like a couple local news stations picked up on it. And then that kind of spread from there. And then we started getting inbound leads, we didn't even start a sales process yet. Great. But the school was like, hey, before we purchase, we need the local police to give this a thumbs up. And police in general are very skeptical of new technologies, rightfully so. But so they had seven different police stations throughout Southern New Jersey come to this place. And they did active shooter drills for like 2-3 days. Actors, it was like the whole gambit. It was like a big show. We weren't allowed to be involved, but they sit there and like they clocked it from like using the system and not using the system. And it was like an average of 50% reduction in response time. And it wasn't like, yeah, we want to detect that gun before shots are fired. That's like the best case scenario. And you get it out and no one gets hurt. But even if shots are already being fired, but we get those detections and they're still getting that information, it still helps the response time and that's what the police were saying in the thing, which like we weren't expecting. Like that tagline, stop threats at first sight, not first shot. We didn't even come up with that. It was actually one of the police chiefs that was there. And we were like, can we use that? So it was even just getting that information to them, because if you think like Parkland, for example, a lot of people responded to the stadium. A lot of the first responders went to the stadium because they thought it was there, because you show up to like a 50-acre campus and all they know, they're walking into an active shooter scenario. They went to the stadium, but really the active shooter was inside the building. He was shooting out the second story window towards the stadium. And then he went to McDonald's afterwards. And it's like, come on, it's like giving them the information now. It's like, no, it's a 5'10" white male, appears to be carrying an assault rifle. And he's at the southeast corner, first floor of the main building. The police were like, boom, got it. Okay, I know where I'm going.
It's not just the fact that an active shooter is there or the one with weapon. It's where they are, who they are, what they're carrying. It's all the additional information that you're able to pull directly from that feed.
Correct.
That multi customer aspect that you have? So you have the campus, the school, their customer, but I guess the police are your customer as well.
They're
In
more of like a champion. We look them as a champion. Typically, well, it depends. Police can be a customer depending what district it is, what state, et cetera, because some police districts or stations, however you want to call it, they don't own any security cameras. They just use the security cameras in the municipality or at the school, et cetera. Some places they don't let them. And so that's a little different, but we look at them as like kind of being a champion in some regards. Actually, no, being a champion. That's it.
Has there been any pushback, and what has that pushback been?
No, we haven't received pushback yet. I mean, there's the naysayers and the haters that come out all the time, like, "Oh, it's never going to work," and blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, okay, we'll see. Like any entrepreneur faces that in any endeavor that they do. No, because people realize it's detecting an object. It's not like doing facial recognition. It's not doing
bypassing one of the main concerns or issues people have around AI and detection.
Yep. We're not storing people's biometric data, nothing like that. And it's just about giving people, you could walk down the street in any town, city in the United States, and you'll see thousands. Spend one day walking for a few hours through a city or like a populated town, and you'll count hundreds of cameras. And no one's doing anything with them. It's just a way, and gun violence has been surging. It's the mass shooter, active shooter thing is not going away anytime soon. And something's needed. Someone needs to do something. So,
and you fully believe this could turn into $1 billion business.
Yeah, I do. It's not even about that. It's, if you think about like going back to all the cameras, like this happening at any one building or location, the probability super low. But then when you add them all up together, you turn on the news every day, there's another mass shooting every day. So you get in enough locations, you're gonna see it happen, and then we just want to help in one of those situations, and then that equates to saving lives. If it's stopping it before shots are fired, fantastic. If it's after shots are fired, but we help get the police there sooner so they can provide first aid and stop the threat before more people are hurt, awesome. And we can look back and say we saved some lives. I'm done. I mean, well, I won't be done, but I'm like, that's been like our mission from day one. So
speaking of, there are cases where your product is in play and it's been used. I don't think you can speak to them probably because of confidentiality, but it has been used.
Yes. I forget how many states we're in right now, like 15. We have everything from education, market clients, commercial clients, and it's everything, office buildings, retail, schools, et cetera. And it's been used. And fortunately, it wasn't someone trying to be like an active shooter, mass shooter. It turned out to, knock on wood, and I hope it stays this way, but it was kids being idiots. Playing what the one was that turned out to be a pellet gun, which was, we were like, but they could, from the time we saw the alert till it got to the police to the time the kid pulled out the weapon, I think it took like 2 minutes to apprehend him.
2 minutes from taking it out to apprehend.
From the time that we notified them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's a good case of it wouldn't have been a bad thing, but still it shows that it works, that it detects it. I'm going to ask you a question from a different angle here, because you're really bringing a whole new way to solve a unique problem with technology. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there and tech leaders that have ideas and they want to apply this new technology idea, but there's always pushback. There's the fear of the unknown, trying something new. What would you say to someone of what you've learned of how do you get someone to adopt a new technology?
Like crossing a chasm, looking for those early adopters. You got to create awareness. You got to get out there and pound the pavement and be able to speak to the problem you're solving or trying to. You got to be able to be like, state the problem easily. This is the problem. This is what we're trying to solve, and then speak to your product and understand its weaknesses and strengths, because like nothing is perfect in this world. and then have that vision for them. Like, yeah, you work with us now. It's at this state, but it will be here in the future. But this is helping you with this problem. I don't,
Mhm.
I don't think there's any more magic to it.
I love you. Like it's not that hard. You just here's the problem, here's the solution, and present it properly. Do
Yeah.
you feel you're a natural like born salesperson? Is like that
Oh,
help
no.
you? No?
No, definitely not. When I'm passionate about something, I'm like really involved with something. Like, yeah, I could. It's not that I'm even selling. I'm just. It's not that I'm like, oh, I'm going to go out. I'm like speaking to it. I'm like, this is
Mm.
needed. Like, that's it.
The mix of your co-founders, the other four co-founders, how did that turn out? Did you just guys were all buddies and you're all decided this is a good problem to solve together?
Yeah. So, four of us came from the SEAL teams, and we knew each other from our days working in the SEAL teams. Like, literally been to war together multiple times. Tim was not in the military, but Tim's the one that I worked for when I got out of, or when I was in B school. He was my first boss when I got out of the Navy. But like Rob, Sam, they left, and Dustin, they all left the military right around the same time as me, and then they're like trying to figure out life. And like Rob also went to Wharton. Then he worked at Amazon for a couple of years. Sam went to Columbia. Then he went into private equity. Then he was jumping into portfolio companies and kind of being a fixer. Like he would take on a role for a little bit, fix it. They would hire someone to backfill, and they would jump to the next portfolio company. Dustin Vanderbilt MBA and did government contracting work and bounced over. So we're like a jack of all trades, master of none. And we say that in the SEAL teams too, which is funny, except for Tim. Tim is just, he's a super sharp guy. Like I never saw someone that's at the same time, like so smart, but like works so hard and can be self-taught and is just a true problem solver. And so all of us brought all of our even though we're all come from like the SEAL background, but like we all bring different traits to the table because we're just different people, different personalities, the way we think about things, and like the way we test and pressure each other and poke at each other. So to think differently, and just worked out well.
For those that would be thinking about having co-founders or hiring team members that have a military background, what do you say is the benefits or the value that kind of has helped you in your career and your being that in your co-founders?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to hire vets or like even find one to be a co-founder with you, it's one, if you have the right mission, they're gonna anyone that went into the military over the last 20 years, they were volunteering to go into something where they knew they were going to go get put in a war situation. So right there, that speaks volumes. If you have them on your team behind the right mission to make a difference in this world, there's nothing that's going to stop them. But then they also have like the discipline and rigor to get things done. Even if they don't know how to do something, they're the type of people that are going to find a way to get it done no matter what. Might not be very pretty getting from A to B, but they'll get there. That's it. And then, well, that's not it. There's the integrity part, but I'm not going to say everyone coming out of the military has integrity. That would be a very, very bold statement. But there's a high probability of it. And a work ethic. Like you match those two, you doesn't matter what the person's education is, you just get a lot done.
For you as a leader, this is the first company that you've well, not the first company you found. You said you've dabbled in retail, real estate and some other things. How have you grown as a leader? What have you looked to? What would you say is a lesson learned as a leader?
I've been trying to get a lot better about sitting on problems before responding to them. So I like to, even if it seems like it is hot, like I need to do something about it right now, I'd like to really think about it for like a day and then sleep on it. A lot of good things come to me in my sleep. I wake up and try to jot down notes real quick before it fleets my mind. I've gotten a lot better at that. And then also, I have a short temper. And it's definitely been a weakness of mine for basically my whole life. And so I really try to hone in on that and recognize when it's happening, just like take a breather, might not need to say anything right now, and just like, and then sit on it, mull on it, and like come to a new problem. And the other thing is like, I realized, and it took, even though we negotiated and everything more in the SEAL teams, you're over there in Afghanistan working with different groups and et cetera. Everything is a negotiation, but it didn't really click for me. It was like when I was at Wharton, you take a really great negotiations class. I read some books on it and stuff, but now I realize, especially because I have teenagers, everything in life is a negotiation, like literally everything. And obviously in business, if it's with my peers, people that are working for us, or if it's with investors or board, partners, vendors, et cetera, constant. And then, so you just, you try to put yourself in the other people's shoes sometimes and see it from multiple angles. So like, you might not win the negotiation, but if everyone's walking away from the table, not like, no one's like super pissed off and no one's like, everyone's like, then it's probably worked out well. And so like understanding how that works.
Yeah, negotiate. Everything is a negotiation.
Literally.
Right. Did you always realize that, or is that just more of a more recent learning?
No, it's starting ZeroEyes. I realize, oh my God, everything's a negotiation. Even with my kids.
Kids. For this company, was this the first time you raised capital yourself?
No. So when I left Wharton, I did a search fund. It was called Horseman Partners. It was based off of our platoon name in the SEAL teams. We're the Pale Horsemen. And so Sam was at Columbia Business School. I was at Wharton. We're in the same year group. We were trying to buy a company on our own, and we were like, let's buy a business and we'll run it and change it and whatever. And we thought it was a great idea. I knew nothing about search funds. And then we came across search funds. I'm not sure if you're familiar with search funds. It's like a micro P vehicle where you go out and raise capital from investors. And it's usually around like 600K. And that gives you runway for 2 years. So it pays like you like a salary and overhead, and you go and try to find a business within those 2 years to purchase from that wants to sell their business. So like, you're not in like looking at the PE size companies, you're looking somewhere around like 1.5 million in EBITDA to 5 million in EBITDA, roughly. You're looking for a good business to buy. And then when you buy that business, you jump in as a CEO and you run that business. And then the investors that funded you to go find that business, they like sit on a board, and then, but they structured a deal. So like, yeah, you partake in the equity upside, but the terms they get are very good for them. Not so good for, I mean, it's still fair. It was absolutely fair. Like, cause we didn't have two nickels to rub together. And Sam and I, we just learned so much during that process of those 2 years. So that's when the first time I raised capital.
And so you were very familiar with that concept then when you got to ZeroEyes. So was it kind of straightforward?
No, it wasn't, because raising capital for a startup, and especially in a SaaS type world, is much different than raising capital to go buy a business. It's just similar, but not. It's apples. There's both fruit. You're raising capital, but it's apples and oranges.
If you kind of look back over the years and you think about where you got your greatest insight, were there any books or audiobooks or just places you go to or things that have stuck with you that have been?
Yeah, I'm a pretty voracious reader. Actually, I haven't been in like the last, since starting ZeroEyes. I don't read nowhere near as much. All my time is like kids, work. Lots of books that I read over the years. I was such a huge fan of like Warren Buffett. Like once I was in college and started understanding and investing, I was always on like the motleyfool.com, like looking at things. I don't know if you're familiar with fool.com. I used to do a lot of stock stuff when I was in the military, like on the side, because you couldn't really start a company or anything. Then it went into, podcasts. There's quite a few that I like. Tim Ferriss's books were always great. They just made me think about business differently. And I really enjoy his podcast. Obviously Joe Rogan, I pop in and out of there, but I got more from the business side of things from Tim Ferriss. When I started the real estate thing, there was a podcast called Bigger Pockets. Great podcast if you want to get into real estate investing on your own, like flipping houses or buying houses, rehabbing them and putting tenants in and being a landlord and thinking about that process. That was phenomenal. Yeah, a lot of the books I read in the last couple of years though were more around everything from like emotional intelligence to negotiations and thinking through problems. And yeah.
One of the reasons why I like doing this series is just hearing how you learn as an entrepreneur, the journey that you've been on, the technology. I always love the technology too, but also just like as a person, individual, how do you manage your life, your time? And you've already mentioned you have kids, a family, multiple kids.
Yeah. Sure.
How do you manage your time? Running a new startup now, 3 years in and a family. Any lessons learned there?
Yeah. That's the other thing. Yeah. Doing an entrepreneur thing, the first year of this, I was not doing it. I was like, my personal health, well-being, like totally went out the window. And I was like, but yeah, you got to focus on, you got to take care. You can't take care of anyone else if you're not taking care of yourself, because the wheels just start falling off the bus. So like, and this is stuff that we knew from the SEAL teams and everything else, but like, got to get good sleep, get good, eat right. It doesn't mean you can't go out and have pizza or wings or something on the weekend, but like, eat right during the week when you can. Make sure you get exercise in, even if it's only like an hour walk or even 15 minutes of some quick workout. Try to get that in every day. It's really important. I can feel it myself if I don't work out for like 2 weeks or something. Like it will start messing with me. Meditation, huge. That got really into that in the last 2.5 years with yoga, which was surprising. If you asked me 10 years ago if I'd be a meditator or yoga, I'd be like, what? Doing those things. But again, you're stressed for time in every aspect. So I like to get up at like in between the hours of like 4 and 5:30. And I usually go right to my cup of coffee and I go to my computer like within like 15, 20 minutes of waking up. Some people might say don't do that, but it works for me. So I do it. And I get all my stuff out to everyone I need to in the early morning hours. And so then I like, I think about it like attack, and get all my stuff out. And then I go into receive mode and I'm waiting for everyone to get back to me for things. So I like cleared all my stuff off my plate. Kids are at school, that stuff's taken care of. Whatever I need to get done at the house is done. And I could go get that quick exercise in, eat something healthy for lunch. And then you can catch up on a couple of phone calls. And then at the end of the day, I wrap up with the receive mode and then prep everything for that next morning. And then I look at those problems and then that's when I'm like, okay, I'm going to like, I try to pick one or two, no more than that to really like to think about before I go to bed. So like when I sleep, it like really goes into my head.
You mentioned that earlier that you come up with good solutions in your sleep. You're always working, even in your sleep. What's your nightly prep routine for the next day look like?
I try to get off electronics pretty early or like shut the phone off. That's almost impossible though. But like I'll still like check quick messages. Like I feel like that's as long as you're an entrepreneur running a company, you're going to have that problem. But you have to get to a point where like, okay, that's done for the night. Really, I like relaxing at night and hanging out, watching Netflix or something stupid, mind numbing that like just like totally like. And then I try to get to sleep around 9:30 or 10. I'll drink like a calm tea or something with magnesium in it and make sure I'm hydrated and then go to sleep.
Simple as that.
Sometimes I have to listen to like some like nighttime, but like binaural beats. Got really into that in the last 2 years, and I love them too. They really help me when I work or when depending on what kind you're listening to. But
I'm going to switch gears a little bit here on this final question. You've been in the business world for a while, going to Wharton and starting different things, and now you have this tech SaaS company. Looking at the future of, I guess, security and the technology innovations, what do you predict we'll see in the next 5 years from now?
I think you're going to see a much closer intertwine of cyber and physical. It's going to, I just see that coming closer and closer together. Cameras are everywhere. Video analytics are just going to keep going through the roof, depending what type it is, especially because the computing power to like perform video analytics at scale is finally catching up with GPUs and everything. It's like you didn't really have that. It was very cost prohibitive before. I think that's coming down. So you're going to see more and more of that. And then the integrations into the robotic piece of that. If it's a drone or some type of dog robot or whatever it is, you're going to see a lot of that too.
Mike, you have shared a ton of information in a very short amount of time. I don't know if that's your military background or just who you are. It's just like boom, 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 give us all the data. This has been fantastic. For those that want to learn more, they can head over to ZeroEyes.com. That's ZeroEyes.com. Thank you for your time, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
And we'll see you all on the next episode of UpTech Report. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.